Well, I just finished watching the leaders debate hosted by the Munk Center in downtown Toronto. I thought it was a pretty great debate. Maybe you watched it on our website. We live streamed the debate on TheRebel.media, courtesy of the Munk Center. You wouldn't have seen it if you turned on the CBC, though, which is pretty weird because there's the so-called public broadcaster. They get $1 billion a year in taxpayer money. They have a statutory mandate to broadcast things of this nature, but they just didn't. Don't you think that's odd? It was in front of a studio audience of several thousand people. I think the energy of having that many people in the room made the leaders pretty much on their best game. Or maybe it was that I enjoyed the subject matter of the debate or the format, whatever it was. I thought it was a pretty good debate. Let me tell you some quick thoughts in case you missed it, or even if you saw it, let me give you my take on it. First of all, I think that the part on terrorism was clarifying. I don't think there was anything new that we heard there, but we saw Justin Trudeau, for example, double down on his position that even convicted terrorists who have dual citizenship should not be stripped of their Canadian citizenship. Trudeau went all in on that, which is shocking to me. I'm surely he knows that that will go over like a lead balloon with Canadians. I think he's trying to shore up his pro-Islamist credentials that Thomas Mulcair owns by being hardline on Bill C-51. That's the new anti-terrorism legislation that allows CSIS to thwart would-be terrorists from going overseas, for example. It's all subject to court oversight, but the NDP says that it'll be a great threat to civil liberties. Justin Trudeau supported that anti-terrorism law, and the NDP stick it to him every time. There was an interesting debate on migrants, and I thought Stephen Harper was strong when he said we're not just chasing headlines, we're having a very prudent calculation of how many people we can take in. We're taking in as many as the United States. I think that's persuasive, especially to people who are afraid that we'll just open up the floodgates to unscreened non-refugees who are just migrants, amongst them embedded jihadists. Harper, I think, was persuasive when he said he's been to a refugee camp in Jordan and he knows it's critical to screen for terrorists. There was an interesting debate about Ukraine. Canada has clearly been the strongest country in the world when it comes to at least morally standing by Ukraine. Obviously, Canada can't go it alone in either military or sanctions, but Canada has the largest sanctions against Russia, and it actually has sent Canadian troops to help train Ukrainians and has sent other equipment as well, non-lethal equipment. Thomas Mulcair said something that is very NDP, but I think it should irritate Canadians who believe in our national sovereignty. He criticized the current mission against the Islamic State terrorists. We have 6 CF-18 jets. He criticized it, saying it was neither a United Nations mission nor a NATO mission, implying that he believes that the Canadian Prime Minister should not have the authority, or at least the moral authority, to send troops to combat without the permission of other countries. Now, obviously, it's a good idea to work with our allies, especially in NATO. I'm not quite sure if it makes sense to listen to what the United Nations has to say with people like Iran and Russia and China having votes. But it's odd to me that Thomas Mulcair would go all in and say he does not believe in using our military without the permission of foreign countries. Isn't the definition of a military an expression of Canada's will? The debate shifted to Canada-U.S. relations, and of course the Keystone XL came up. Thomas Mulcair said again what he said in earlier debates and what I've seen Rachel Notley, the NDP Premier of Alberta, say, which is that the Keystone XL pipeline would ship 40,000 Canadian jobs to the United States. He says that every time, so does Rachel Notley, and I never really clicked what the heck they were talking about. I mean, we get rich when we export crude oil. And then it sort of emerged from the debate, he means the 40,000 construction jobs that the U.S. State Department estimates that pipeline will create. So those aren't jobs stolen from Canadians. Those are construction jobs to build the pipe that Canada will use to sell even more crude oil. What's amazing to me is that you have 200 reporters in the parliamentary press gallery, and not one of them have seen fit to fact-check Mulcair or Rachel Notley on this for months. The debate, as it won't surprise you, continued in this low information way on Keystone XL. There's so much propaganda out there, including Thomas Mulcair saying that not a mile of pipeline has been built in Canada in 10 years. That's simply not true. The celebrity projects have not moved forward because, in part, of Thomas Mulcair and Justin Trudeau. But there have been thousands of kilometers of pipelines built within Canada that don't need American approval or that sail through the National Energy Board. One of the last things I want to talk about is the greenhouse gas debate and the climate change debate. It was mercifully small in terms of the percentage of talk time in this debate. I thought Stephen Harper actually leaned in very strongly on this one. I even hazard the statement that he won the debate. If you're worried about carbon dioxide, and I know you're not, because like me, you exhale carbon dioxide, and like me, you probably know plants need it to grow. Stephen Harper pointed out that greenhouse gas emissions have actually fallen under his leadership, and that the countries that make the biggest promises fail by the biggest amount. I thought he was very persuasive. Now, maybe I would think so no matter what, because I think the greenhouse gas argument is bogus. But, I mean, let me just show you one quick clip if I can sneak it in here. Here's Thomas Mulcair's diesel-powered bus idling for 5 hours at the Calgary debate. Take a quick look.
Just taking a look here. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but Thomas Mulcair has his big bus here. Looks to be a pretty big diesel pusher. And throughout the whole debate, rather than turning it off, he's simply leaving it idling.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Thomas Mulcair deeply believes in the threat of global warming too if he lets his own diesel bus idle for 5 hours, but like Harper says, he talks big. Let me just close by saying what I thought the line of the night was for each of the candidates. Trudeau was at his best when he was talking about himself. He really talked about what a great son he is to his late father, Pierre Trudeau. It was his strongest segment because it's the one thing he believes in the most, himself and his right to inherit his father's mantle. It was his most passionate and his most well-briefed. The one thing Justin Trudeau can be counted on to know about is himself. The NDP had a good line. I mean, Thomas Mulcair is a man of a lot of zingers. Some of them are a little bit caustic, but he said one that I liked. The moderator, who, by the way, I thought was excellent tonight, put a question to Justin Trudeau saying, what if you are Prime Minister and you meet with Vladimir Putin? There's some laughter from the audience because it was just so incongruous that would happen. And Trudeau said, well, I'd be tough and I'd be rough. And Thomas Mulcair says, you can't even stand up to Stephen Harper on Bill C-51. Come on, no one thinks you're going to stand up to Putin. It was a double-edged jab, one pointing out that Justin Trudeau doesn't support that left-wing cause, and number two, it's right. Does anyone think Trudeau would stand up to Putin? I mean, remember the first time Trudeau even mentioned Putin as Liberal leader? Remember this clip?
Pour moi, le président Yanukovych est rendu illégitime. Et c'est très inquiétant, surtout puisque la Russie a perdu au hockey. Ils vont être de mauvaise humeur. On craint l'implication russe en Ukraine.
Juste à cause du hockey?
C'est d'essayer d'amener une optique un peu légère dans une situation qui est extrêmement sérieuse, extrêmement troublante.
On pense que ça peut dégénérer en massacre.
Stephen Harper's best line of the night, I'm going to say he had two. One of them, when they were talking about the anti-terrorism law, Bill C-51, he said that the real risk to Canada isn't CSIS, it's ISIS. I don't even know if he meant that as a line or a zinger, but it's so true. You had these two left-wing parties arguing about who's more afraid of Canadian police and who's more in love with Islamists. And Stephen Harper reminded everybody, yeah, there really are risks of terrorism, and CSIS keeps us safe. But I think the best line of the night was when there was this assumption by Thomas Mulcair and Justin Trudeau that Stephen Harper and Barack Obama hate each other, and it's a completely unproductive arrangement. I don't know. It seems to me that they're very opposite men in both their demeanors and their policies. But as Stephen Harper accurately pointed out, Barack Obama has never said such a thing. He has never blamed Canada for the reason the Keystone XL pipeline would not proceed. This animosity that these others were ascribing to the relationship is simply not proved. But then here's what he said that I thought was so strong. He said, if you want to see hostility from Barack Obama, then imagine the day after Justin Trudeau or Thomas Mulcair wins and they announce they're pulling out of the mission against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. And what a great point that is. See, here you have Thomas Mulcair and Justin Trudeau playing debater, playing question period in a hypothetical world where neither of them has had any real responsibility. And so they can take extreme views against the anti-terrorism law, saying they'll pull all our troops out of Syria and Iraq. How will that go over in real life if they actually become leader and say, hey, Barack Obama, we're going to pull out of the coalition, enjoy yourselves. It's not that our 6 CF-18s are making an enormous difference, but they're a symbol of our friendship and alliance with the United States. That moment, I thought, was the best reminder that you had one grown-up on stage and 2 debate club members. Anyways, those are my thoughts. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. For TheRebel.media, I'm Ezra Levant.